Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. No late-night jokes this week. I didn't forget, just everybody was off other than Tiffany Haddish sitting in for Kimmel, so we'll skip that. Patton Oswalt has once again defended Dave Chappelle, saying that the transphobic jokes that got Chappelle in hot waters do not make Chappelle transphobic. Patton says Chappelle is reacting to some things that happened to him when he was young. Patton is the guest on the We Might Be Drunk podcast with Marc Norman and Sam Morrill. Patton said, I thought the jokes were lazy. I don't think he's transphobic. Chappelle is brilliant. I came up with him. He's a friend, but we disagree on this one effing thing. I don't agree with his stance on this one thing. Comedians fight about stuff all the time. Patton got in trouble with some folks back in 2022 on New Year's Eve. He posted a photo with Chappelle on Instagram and captured the image. I ended the year with a real friend and a deep laugh. Can't ask for much more. People got upset at Patton the next day, January 1st, 2022. He posted, while Chappelle as a comic is the funniest I've ever met, Patton wanted you to know, I support trans people's rights, anyone's, all caps, rights to live safely in the world as their fullest selves. For all the things he's helped me evolve on, I'll always disagree with where he stands now on transgender issues, but I also don't believe a seeker like him is done evolving, learning. You know someone that long, see the struggles and changes, it's impossible to cut them off. Patton added, I've said plenty of crap on my early albums that I now know better, explaining that comedy does not age. We should hold and accept that and kind of roll with it, but at the time, I have a lot of friends, I have family members who are trans, who are transitioning, and I talk to them and they're terrified right now. And it's the exact same thing back when black people would say, the cops beat us up all the time, and it's like, this is all BS, this is fear-mongering. And then we put cameras on cops, and lo and behold, there's footage of cops beating the F out of them. Listen to the minority group. If they're telling you they're scared, they're not making stuff up. Patton said one of the gifts of comedy is to evolve with the times. You can talk about whatever you want, but it's your job to find a way to make it funny. If you're a comedian and enough people are saying, hey, I'm coming to you because I'm not a scold, it's just like, this is really harmful and this is why, just go, I'm sure I can find another way to say this. I'm a comedian. You can't go, nope, that's the way I wrote it and I can't change it. Well then, how the F are you in show business? That's very interesting. WTF, the podcast is ending. However, you can look forward to WTF, the graphic novel. Sure, why not? Marc Maron is working with graphic novel publisher Z2. The graphic novel will span the period between 2004 and 2025. Maron launched WTF in 2009. Maron said, this is a fantastic way for friends to relive the entire run of the podcast without needing to listen to thousands of hours of material. The graphic novel is already funded, but a Kickstarter will launch on September 4th to allow listeners to pre-order the book and gain access to WTF memorabilia. I love Maron, and Maron's on a hot streak here. You know what? I may have to update comedy stock market. We'll see in the second half of the show. But this is feeling a little Jim Gaffigan bourbon to me. I could do an entire episode on Marc Maron. There are so many Marc Maron articles, and, you know, if you listen to the show every day, I like to mix it up, so that's enough Maron for today, but there's a big Newsweek article that I'll pick at as the next week. So we're now switching from press about the HBO special to press about the documentary, and then we're going to get press about the end of the podcast. So there's going to be a lot of Marc Maron. I should probably have the AI make a Marc Maron song. Kumail Nanjiani was on Mike Birbiglia's Working It Out podcast, and Kumail said that he got a bad review from Elon Musk. Elon didn't like Silicon Valley. Apparently, Elon didn't like the series 2014 opening episode, which featured Kid Rock performing at a tech party while 7 nerdy dudes stood by with no one paying attention. Kumail said Elon was upset. He was like, well, the parties I go to are much cooler than these parties. Nanjiani thought, yeah, man, you're one of the richest people in the world. We're like losers on the show. Of course your parties are better than my parties. What are you talking about? Dusty Slay says he finds a lot of common ground between music and stand-up comedy, saying, I think, in a way, comedy bits are like our own little songs. They are our own little poems. When I do a full comedy special, I almost think about how someone would put out an album, at least the older albums where an album would be complete. You might have some themes from an earlier song that come back in a later song, and it ties the whole thing together. He says, these days we're in a phase of comedy where everybody wants clips. We all want likes. We all want to go viral. But when I think about a special, I like to have a full-on, complete special that feels like I'm going in and out of little songs. Chris Hardwick is back. You know, Maron gets a lot of credit for podcasting. Chris Hardwick absolutely had a huge podcast for years. He was with Nerdist. Then it became ID10T. It has now come back, rebranded as I Think You're Overthinking It. Pajiba says it's essentially the same podcast it's always been. Recently, he had James Gunn, who showed up to talk about the upcoming season of Peacemaker. So that sounds like an episode that would be perfectly comfortable on Nerdist. And if you're in Elmira tonight, watch out. You know who's in town? The worst person who ever lived, that horrible scoundrel Jay Leno, who dared once make a comment about late night comedy. What a just awful person. And listen to this. Jay says, my point is to get laughs. I don't try to inflict my views on people. I don't try to do politics anymore. He even commented on late night, this scoundrel. He said, it has to do with the nature of television. They all have way more commercials than they used to. If I see Jake from State Farm again, I'm going to shoot myself in the head. This guy, Jay, even said, I love being a live performer. I like a live audience and the idea of connecting with actual people. And he says, it's a lot of fun. How dare you, sir? Tickets for an evening with Jay Leno are still available. $78 to $119 with service charges included. Elmira, New York.
Comedy stock market.
That's right. It's Comedy Stock Market. Every Friday, we take a look at the comedy industry, and I recommend some buys or sells, sometimes even a hold. And you know what? I think it's time we sell some Marc Maron stock. Not all of it, but let's take a profit. I think we're at peak Maron value. If he's making graphic novels and getting into Jim Gaffigan bourbon territory, we're at peak Maron, and it's going to be downhill from here, I think. So let's sell half our Maron stock and cash out high. So what should we do with our money? Let's buy some stock in Chinadu Unaka. Have you caught his special on Hulu? Really fantastic. Let's also buy some Kyle Kinane. Why? I just have a hunch. Like I said earlier in the week, I think he's low-key, quietly, maybe, perhaps, possibly, the best comedian in the game right now. So let's buy some Kyle Kinane while nobody's looking. Let's also buy some Patton Oswalt, because he has that Amazon special coming up. It's an audio special only, so he'll be doing a lot of press. People will be like, oh yeah, I like Patton Oswalt. So we'll buy Patton, buy Kyle, buy Chinadu Unaka, sell Maron. Let's also sell all of our Fringe stock. The Fringe is over, and people are just miserable. You've heard me do that story every day, so we'll sell our Fringe stock. And then I've got one more buy recommendation for you. Jonathan Kite has been doing these wonderful, wonderful Anthony Bourdain impressions on Instagram. I've pulled some audio here from one. I mean, check this out. This is just amazing.
Costco. We start with the legendary hot dog, the last honest bargain left in America. Inflation-proof at $1.50, this symphony of salt, fat, and don't ask too many questions is truly a tube of edible chaos. Costco customers consume over 200 million hot dogs a year, which is almost as many as Joey Chestnut and Bonnie Blue. Then we have the pizza, available in cheese and pepperoni. Finally, a two-slice solution that everyone can agree on. And finally, gasoline. Because at Costco, they proudly pump fuel into both you and your vehicle. You haven't truly lived the suburban American dream until you filled your SUV with Kirkland Signature Petroleum, then your face with toothpick mystery meat and complimentary cubes of cheddar. They say go big or go home, but at Costco, you can do both.
That's Jonathan Kite doing Anthony Bourdain. I love it. Out today, Fortune Feimster's audio album for Good Fortune. Also on audio today, David Spade's Dandelion. Also today, you can save Marc Maron's Panicked as an audio album and get an exclusive single. John Crist, pre-save his album Emotional Support, access an exclusive single. And also pre-save Mike Vecchione's Low Income White and access an exclusive single. All that from the 800-pound gorilla whose publicist sends me stuff, unlike the Hulu publicist. And see, I'm happy to talk about the 800-pound gorilla. Hannah Berner is part of the lineup for the first ever Hall of Fame Celebrity Pro Classic presented by the International Tennis Hall of Fame. That event is today. Coming up in September, it is the return of the Columbus Comedy Festival. This year's festival includes multiple comedy magic shows featuring homegrown talent, including Michael Kent and Chris Hannawell. A lot of showcases and thematic shows to help audience members discover new performances, including an all-Asian and Asian American showcases. One show that's all crowd work, and a roast battle show. Some other popular shows returning are Female AF, an all-women lineup. Drunk PowerPoint, described as a hilarious slideshow presentation of topics. And Chicago Showcase, hosted by viral sensation Chad the Bird. Chad the Bird is a puppet act with some NSFW hot takes. The Columbus Comedy Festival, Thursday, September 4th through Sunday, September 7th. That's fun. Fringe is almost over. I better get these articles cleared out. I've been bouncing them every day because the podcast has been long. Voice Mag caught up with Ismail Lufti. Ismail's show is called Heavenly Baba, centered around a period of my life where my father was actively trying to convert everyone in my home state to Islam by painting the most insane Islamic slogans and mantras on his car. He says, my father instilled an extremely black and white worldview in my head, and nothing is more black and white than stand-up. You either kill or you bomb. There's very little nuance in comedy, which made it attractive to me. My show started out 70% stand-up, 30% story. After working on it for a year, I gradually took out as many stand-up jokes as I could and replaced them with story beats and accompanying slides. Influences: David Cross, Jon Stewart, Al Franken. Best, worst, or weirdest review you ever received? He says, nobody reviews comedy in the States, which is maybe why American comedy's gotten so crappy, so I don't know how to answer this. This is a good interview. Is there a question you wish interviewers would ask you, but they never do? He said, yes. What's your favorite empire from history? The answer, the Ottomans. They took a ragtag group of nomadic horse archers and conquered a fifth of Europe while wearing the biggest turbans in human history. And they invented some of the best food on earth. Kind of dropped the ball in the 20th century, but that's life. Heavenly Baba is at the Assembly George Square Studio 5 at 6 p.m., but the festival's over this weekend, so get on a plane. Unless you're already in Edinburgh, in which case just walk down the street. Maybe rent out your spare room. You could probably make some money. And I found this exchange pretty fascinating. Some UK TV executives were at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. The topic, David Mitchell's show The Outsider. You know David Mitchell from Mitchell & Webb. Well, Outsiders has been shelved after 3 years after David Mitchell said he's too busy to film it again. In Outsiders, comedians are thrust into a post-apocalyptic scenario where they must see if they have the survival skills to live outdoors. It aired between 2021 and 2023. Mitchell said his role on the show was to be a slightly befuddled, irascible, and indecisive leader. Now, the part that caught my eye, other than I just like David Mitchell, executives at the Fringe said, it is not currently returning, and we have announced that. What a weird way to phrase it. It's almost as if, like, English isn't their first language. It is not currently returning, and we have announced that. That's, like, very German matter of fact. The executives continued. Would we look at the show again in the future? Maybe. Not currently. He loved doing it. We loved working with him. He is quite a difficult man to get a lunch appointment with. We never say never. Absolutely. That's your comedy news for today. If you'd like the program without commercial interruption, Apple Podcast, you click a banner, it says uninterrupted listening, and then you read the instructions, and I get 3/5 of $5 eventually. And then I split it with my partner, Marc. So I get like $1.25, but you get the show commercial free. So that's kind of fun. All right. See you tomorrow.